Turning to Money Watch now, it was a rebound day on Wall Street. The Dow Jones is up around 344 points.
The S&P 500 and NASDAQ both ended in the green. The S&P is up more than 1%. The NASDAQ is up more than 2%. And joining us now is Jaime Lowe. She's a contributor for the New York Times Magazine. And she wrote an article for the magazine recently entitled, "With Stealth Politics, Billionaires Make Sure Their Money Talks." It was published earlier this month. And Jaime, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
You know, in your article, you talk about this belief by political scientists that billionaires practice stealth politics. So for those who don't know, what exactly is stealth politics?
So it's the idea that billionaires and the ultra rich and multimillionaires can actually work actively behind the scenes to shape government policy without the majority of Americans knowing what they're doing. So it's a sort of lack of transparency.
So, Jaime, these researchers then performed case studies on 4 individual billionaires to determine their political philosophies and, whether they were able to influence. So how did the researchers accomplish this, and what did they find?
So they actually started out by doing a quantitative analysis of the top 100 billionaires, according to Forbes magazine. And they went through and they did a method that didn't involve actually interviewing billionaires because they're largely unapproachable. They did something called web scraping, where they matched phrases that had to do with tax and economic policies with those 100 billionaires. And they developed these theories around what they found and didn't find. And largely, they didn't find a lot of billionaires speaking about specific issues relating to economic policies. So they wanted to actually show that this theory was correct, that people who had this amount of money, this like ultra wealthy people, weren't speaking specifically because they wanted to kind of obfuscate their own opinions about tax policies because it doesn't align with the majority of Americans. So they then zeroed in on the 4 people to sort of, show that this theory was correct. And those political researchers were Ben Page, Matt Lacombe, and J.C. Wright.
Do they identify the 4 billionaires, or?
They do. Yeah. I mean, they were the case studies. They identify the 100 first, and then they also talk about Warren Buffett. They chose 4 billionaires who had a range of political philosophies, and Warren Buffett was one, Carl Icahn was another, the Koch brothers, I think specifically one Koch brother, but I'm actually forgetting which one, sorry. And then Menard was the 4th one.
And Jaime, in your article, you also discuss this notion of American oligarchy and its role in shaping U.S. politics. Now, noting that the total net worth of billionaires has greatly expanded in recent years, a lot of people want to know what can be done to limit wealthy Americans' influence on the political system.
That's a really good question. And it's a really tough one to answer because there aren't a lot of policies in place to limit the influence. In fact, it's bolstered by Citizens United, which the Supreme Court, put in place not too long ago. I think the one thing that can be done is obviously supporting politicians who are supporting an expansion of Medicare, who are supporting social services, who are supporting things that billionaires often work against. Mm-hmm. So one thing is to try and vote in favor of the majority of Americans' opinion. But I think one of the problems is, as the Pew, research poll found last year, 55% of Americans don't think billionaires are good or bad for the country. But an interesting subset of that is that 50% of 18 to 29-year-olds think billionaires are bad. So I think that there's a group of a sort of a new demographic that is working towards maybe abolishing billionaires or against using the wealth to really sway politics in their favor.
And like you said, though, it is stealth politics, so very hard to identify and counter. All right, well, Jaime Lowe with the New York Times, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.